A lot of things going on at the same time. You had the German government selling some Bitcoin. You have the Mt. Gox bankruptcy, which has been a 10-year drawn-out affair, is now going to be releasing about 140,000 Bitcoins. And so you have a combination of these things going on at the same time that there's been some selling pressure in the ETF. We still love the fundamentals of Bitcoin long-term.
About 80% of those flows now, after people have analyzed it, appear to be retail, not actual institutions going in yet. And so I've talked to a lot of folks who run RIAs or large institutions, and it takes a while for them to go through their investment process, underwrite the risks, approve, and then allocate. And so my expectation is kind of the second half of this year, maybe end of Q3, beginning of Q4, we'll start to see a lot more of the institutional flows into those ETFs. When we get into September and beyond, I think that's just enough to get the price going back up.
It's been a few days of uncertainty for the cryptocurrency market, as reflected by the generally low sentiment among investors. The Crypto Fear and Greed Index, an indicator based on market sentiment, has slipped into fear levels for the first time since October 2023, and there are concerns that there won't be significant improvements anytime soon. According to on-chain data, the German Federal Criminal Police Office has been moving thousands of Bitcoin from its official wallets since June 19, 2024. Earlier this week, there were reports that the German government transferred over $220 million worth of Bitcoin to various exchanges and OTC desks. It has moved at least another 9,736 Bitcoin, valued at $564.3 million in the past 24 hours, and the transfers are expected to continue until the wallets are depleted. So far, since it started the transfers in mid-June, the German government has sold a total of 34,749 Bitcoin, worth around $2.01 billion at current price levels. While new reports suggest the government's Bitcoin reserves could be completely depleted before the end of the week, there is still some uncertainty about other headwinds, including the Mt. Gox asset redistribution and the macro environment. In recent interviews with CNBC, Skybridge Capital founder and former White House Director of Communications Anthony Scaramucci and popular Bitcoin enthusiast and YouTuber Anthony Pompliano discussed their views on the current crypto market situation and what lies ahead for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in 2024 and beyond. They also discussed the ETFs, the regulatory environment, and the upcoming US presidential election, and what it means for the crypto market. As we bring you clips from the interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. These simple steps help with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contribute to the channel's growth. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
A lot of things going on at the same time. You had the German government selling some Bitcoin. You have the Mt. Gox bankruptcy, which has been a 10-year drawn-out affair, is now going to be releasing about 140,000 Bitcoins. And so Skybridge, alongside a Fortress, participated in that. And so you have a combination of these things going on at the same time that there's been some selling pressure in the ETF. And so when that happens, Bitcoin is a volatile asset. You also had a halving, not to get into the Bitcoin jargon with you, but
I think our viewers are well versed on that.
Okay, so every time you have a halving, a result of which it forces the miners to sell some Bitcoin to keep up their revenues, which puts temporary pressure on Bitcoin, but we still love the fundamentals of Bitcoin long term. And I do think, as I said, it'll be 170,000 post-halving, but I think it can get to 100,000 by year end, but it has to chug through this slog right now. One last quick point.
Sure.
FTX is going to be releasing shortly $16 billion roughly of cash to investors that had their accounts at FTX. And so that's very good news for Bitcoin holders, I believe, because a lot of that was in Bitcoin. It got frozen in the bankruptcy. It got dollarized, unfortunately, at low numbers for Bitcoin. But it's going to go back to those account holders shortly, and we think a lot of that may flow into the assets. We call these things life chips. You know, if you get a windfall back like that, you're counting on not getting that money back. Now that you're getting it, you may buy a car, you may buy a house, you may buy a summer house. But I do think 40 to 50% of that will go back into the asset class. I mean, these are hardcore people. Remember, they're early adopters too. If you had an account at FTX, or you have an account at Coinbase, you're considered to be an early adopter in the digital asset space. And so early adopters, have typical loyalty to the asset class. I'll take you back to the situation, the early days of Uber. No government wanted Uber, no administrator wanted Uber, no mayor wanted Uber. All the regulators said no to Uber, but the people wanted Uber. And one thing that just happened today in the GOP platform, they're going to have their convention next week. Right there glaringly in the GOP platform is the protection of digital assets and the protection specifically of Bitcoin. So I think that's a huge mistake by the Democrats. I feel like they're fumbling the football on digital assets. It's not a niche business anymore. Okay, you could go by the Mike Novogratz discussion where he thinks there's 85 million wallets. I think Coinbase put out something like 50 million wallets. Let's cut those down. Let's say there's only 20 million wallets of eligible voters in the United States, and let's say 10% of them are single-issue voters. You've got 2 million potential voters in a very close, very narrow election being resolved by 6 or 7 swing states that could be single-issue digital asset voters. So to me, I think it's overwhelming conclusion that this will be an acceptable long-term asset class in the United States. And if that's the case, I'm not worried about the other sovereigns.
Here's what's going to happen leading up to the election. What do you think? What do you hear? What's the story?
Oh, listen, I mean, I think President Biden is obviously dug in, had a poor debate performance, but it appears like he is going to be the nominee. The swing state voting right now has former President Trump in the lead. I'm a markets guy. I know you're a markets guy. The poly markets are favoring Donald Trump right now. But these things are close elections, and there's a lot to be decided right now. You have the VP process, which will come up this week. You've got another debate on September the 10th. If President Biden is staying in the race, I think he really has to demonstrate what he's been trying to do over the last couple of days. He was on Morning Joe this morning, our sister network, and he's very articulate on Morning Joe. But he's having problems putting sentences together, and I think that has to worry people. And so we'll see how all that unfolds. I think they'll have to make a decision one way or another by the end of this week.
Anthony Scaramucci, a strong Joe Biden supporter and an even stronger Donald Trump hater, believes crypto could be a major factor in deciding the outcome of the November elections, adding that Democrats are making a huge mistake by sticking with their anti-crypto sentiments when so many American crypto investors have stated that they want only pro-crypto representatives who will protect their interests. Like Shark Tank billionaire investor Mark Cuban, Scaramucci believes this is an important issue that could swing the votes in favor of Trump and the Republicans. In another interview with CNBC, crypto enthusiast and popular YouTuber Anthony Pompliano also discussed his views on the current market situation, the US spot Bitcoin ETFs, the regulatory environment, and upcoming elections. Like Scaramucci, Pomp believes the crypto bull market is far from over and will move into more bullish territories in a few weeks. Here are some clips from the interview.
Prices go down because there's more sellers than buyers, obviously. And so the question is who's selling? And there's really two main culprits at the moment. The German government has about 50,000 Bitcoin that they seized from a pirating website, and they've been trying to offload it. What's interesting about it, if you look at the on-chain data, is they're basically going to as many exchanges as they can and trying to sell. And so they're about halfway through that right now. It's about $2.5 billion. They've sold about $1.5 billion or so. And then there's also the Mt. Gox Bitcoin that's been distributed. And so I think people more so are scared, hey, if there's billions of dollars being distributed back, are these people who have been illiquid for years just going to sell it? What's really interesting about this is Bitcoin is still very illiquid. And so there's most of the Bitcoin that is out there being held by people that have a long-term view. And so when a seller shows up with just a couple billion of dollars, the price will go down. Now, if I told you someone was going to come sell billions of dollars and the price was only going to go down to $55,000 or so, that's actually pretty bullish, right? I think that people are looking at this and saying, hey, look, Bitcoin is still pretty healthy. At the start of this year, the amount of Bitcoin that had not moved in over a year was over 70%.
70%.
So very high. Now, as the price has risen, some of that has started to get distributed, which is what you would expect in a bull market. And so really the question right now is basically, how strong are those hands and will they outlast the German government? Will they outlast these, Mt. Gox distributions? And so my expectation expectation is as we get further into the bull market, that number will come back down towards 50, 55%. But still, at least half of the Bitcoin probably is being held by people who have a 10-plus year time horizon. About 80% of those flows now, after people have analyzed it, appear to be retail, not actual institutions going in yet. And so I've talked to a lot of folks who run RIAs or large institutions, and it takes a while for them to go through their investment process, underwrite the risks, approve, and then allocate. And so my expectation is kind of the second half of this year, maybe end of Q3, beginning of Q4, we'll start to see a lot more of the institutional flows into those ETFs. And also the basis trade. There was a lot of people who were going long Bitcoin, short the futures. And as that spread has come down, less and less people are saying, hey, I should go put that trade on. And so it's just a very dynamic market with a lot of inputs and trying to stay on top of it. I still think Bitcoin's got a very good future ahead of it.
The regulatory environment for Bitcoin right now, is it positive or negative?
Donald Trump has positioned himself as a pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto candidate.
Is he really?
And look, I actually think that if you watch his public comments, he has followed pretty much the exact thought process and journey that most Bitcoiners follow. At first you hear about it, you're like, there's no way this could be real. This is a scam. There's probably criminals using this, et cetera. Then you get interested. Then it's all about price. And then eventually you get convinced of sound money principles and kind of the other ethos around it. Now, what I do see is Democrats are kind of caught in between two things, right? Because on one hand, you don't want to cede the crypto and Bitcoin point to the Republicans, but also you have a number of people in the Democratic faction that are saying, look, we don't like this stuff. We actually want to clamp down on it. And so what you're getting is a bifurcation from what I can see where there's some breaking of, the party lines. And ultimately, I think that people for decades have been voting for their wallet. Bitcoin and crypto is just the latest version of that. And so when they go into that ballot box in November, they're going to look for a pro-crypto or pro-Bitcoin candidate, whether it's at the presidential level or state, Senate, Congress, et cetera.
Will that be enough to be a catalyst for Bitcoin if Donald Trump were elected?
A lot of Bitcoiners probably won't like this answer, but I actually think the only thing we need as a catalyst for Bitcoin is time. One of these interesting things about if you go and look through all these different cycles, the summer's just slow. People are doing stuff. People are traveling. They're not sitting in front of their computer watching the chart. And so when we get into September and beyond, I think that's just enough to get the price to go back up.
In other news, popular on-chain analyst Willy has shared fears that the market headwinds and liquidations could last much longer than many expect. In the worst-case scenario, Wu fears that Bitcoin's price may fall below $50,000 per coin to multi-month lows. In a recent thread shared on social media platform X, Wu gives a market overview of the current state of Bitcoin's demand and supply dynamics, discussing minor capitulation, recent activities of the German government, Bitcoin ETFs, and the futures market. Here are a few posts from the thread. Minor capitulation. Are we there yet? Nope. Until hash rate climbs, as seen in a ribbon recovery, the local environment is bearish. Miners are selling off, which happens every time after the halving. Almost always a good buy entry happens when the ribbon recovers. The star of the FUD is the German government selling off their confiscated Bitcoin. Remember the movie 2K Guys hodled from 2013, getting way over 100x appreciation to around $3 billion? Germany now has custody and immediately decides to sell. They have sold 10k Bitcoin so far. Looks like market orders, which further dump the price, reducing their own money. Rumor has it, they have now moved to an OTC desk to let the pros handle it. This will reduce the severity of the price impact, but not negate it. OTC desks will go to the markets to fill any mismatch between buyers and sellers. On the Mt. Gox redistribution, Wu notes that almost 3,000 Bitcoin have been distributed to those affected in the 2014 hack, meaning another 139,000 Bitcoin are left for redistribution. But Wu questions if all of the investors who will get their long-lost coins back will be looking to sell them off immediately, as has been the fear of investors since the redistribution announcement was first made in June. On the ETFs, which despite recent price movements and growing FUD, are still having consecutive days of net inflows, Wu believes the boomers are buying the dip, suggesting an accumulation pattern. In another tweet, Wu reveals that the real situation is unfolding in the futures market. Now for the futures casino. Here's the setup. The heat map is where fuel is laid. The price is the fire. Price wants to hunt higher to take out the shorts all the way to $77,000, but there's also lots of fuel lower. 47k is the next stop in the other direction. The question is, which way is the prevailing wind blowing? Paper bets have been rising, creating 140,000 extra paper Bitcoin, while available spot supply has remained flat. Now, compare that to the 10,000 Bitcoin that Germany sold, and you see what really caused the dump. Risk signal is not picking up a bear market. We have a local bearish environment inside of a macro bull market. This is a consolidation and a gift to sat stackers. There's a lot going on in the crypto market at the moment, but most are only short-term headwinds, and there are just as many mid to long-term tailwinds expected to significantly improve the situation in the coming months. Please share your thoughts and observations on Scaramucci's and Pomp's interviews and Willy Woo's tweets in the comments section below. If you liked the information shared in this video, ensure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.